Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy Sunday to all of you. Yesterday I have asked you about if you would be okay with a video that will be bringing to you some prophecies about Russia and the future of humanity and the world. Many of you have responded absolutely yes, and that you are looking forward to it. However, I am very aware that there is a big part of my audience who is focused mainly on the intellectual approach to the current events, to the military aspect of what's going on, especially in Ukraine and other parts of the world, and also who perhaps is not that interested in having a little bit different approach to it from the spiritual standpoint. Or perhaps, if I will be, when I'm quoting here in a second Dr. Joe Dispenza, whose seminar I actually attended many years ago, about quantum physics and quantum field that is all connecting us in this invisible realm. Where I'm going with this is this, guys. There has been many prophecies about Russia, the future of humanity and the future of the world. And again, as with everything, we have to use our own discernment. We have to listen to our own heart and our own intuition and to come to our own conclusions. Nowadays, as I tend to repeat more than ever, our instincts, intuition is being super activated, which is a great thing because we can recognize true from the lies and we can pull the weeds out. I will start this video with quoting Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his work. If you are not, look him up because he is very appreciated doctor, very renowned expert in tapping into human potential using the power of your brain and connecting it with your heart. So to those of you who only operate on the brain level and you try not to follow your intuition or feelings, this will be a good start. Dr. Joe Dispenza said this: think of the quantum field as one big invisible database, and the way you can access the information contained in this huge database is through your central nervous system. And why I started with his words is because I do believe that many of the people who, not all of them, there is a lot of fake prophets, but there has been throughout the history people who have this ability to tap into this quantum field and receive the information that is already there. And I truly believe that one of those prophets was, as he was called, a sleeping prophet, and that was Edgar Cayce. Some people pronounce his name Case. I will say Casey. I hope that's correct. Anyway, I'm not going to give you the history of this man in details. What I will tell you is that he was very prolific in his work, and during the state of sleep he has been asked question by 3 people. I think one of those people were his wife and his secretary about personal affairs, that people were coming to him asking about personal life, but also about political affairs and looking into the future. Today this video will be dedicated to his prophecies regarding Russia, also a little bit about United States and a lot about President Putin. I will be reading you quite lengthy article, which I hope you will appreciate and stay with me all the way to the end of this video. And if this kind of content brings you any value, please hit this like, subscribe to my channel and leave the comments down below. Also, if this topic for Sunday videos is something that you would be interested in, I will be willing to create 1 or 2 more videos with different prophets for the following Sundays for you. So let's start with Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, who predicted that Putin would save us from World War III. One of the most famous psychics, Edgar Cayce, predicted that Russian President Vladimir Putin would be a force of light in preventing World War III from occurring amid the global turmoil we see today. His predictions were made over 80 years ago in a series of world affairs readings about the future of the world finance, world leadership, collective spirituality, and the important role Russia and Vladimir Putin would play on the world stage. Before I continue, I believe there is a museum. Yes, there is a museum dedicated to his work in the United States. I think it's in Virginia. I'm not sure, I might be mistaken. Those of you who maybe even live there and have ever been there, put in the comments down below. Cayce referred to Putin as being the thorn in the side of the financial powers who would try to organize themselves against the good of humanity in a post-World War II world. When asked in 1932 about political and economic trends in Europe, Cayce zeroed in on Russia. Now, this will be directly from Cayce as it was recorded. Europe is a house broken up. Some years ago, there was the experience of a mighty peoples being overridden for the gratification and satisfaction of a few, irrespective of any other man's right. Dead peoples are going through the experience of being born again, and this is the thorn in the flesh to many political and financial nations in Europe, in the world. And the person who was recording this, is not mentioned here who it was, asked the question, what is the name of that nation referred to? And the answer Edgar Cayce gave was Russia. The source of this is 397-8. 70 years after the defeat of the Axis powers, this is not from Cayce now, this is from this article describing the situation in the world, when this article was actually published, which I think was 2015, around that time. 70 years after the defeat of the Axis powers, Russia has been reborn. But the rest of the world is now largely under the thumb of the Western globalist banking cartel. This cartel is organized as the IMF, the World Bank, the Bank for International Settlements, and the global network of central banks, reserve banks, development banks, and investment banks that hold the world's elected governments in perpetual receivership and the world's people in bondage to mathematically impossible to pay debt. Present day on the edge of the knife. This is the part of this article. In 2013, the United States was attempting to invade Syria under obviously false pretense. Putin prevented US involvement by threatening to intervene militarily in a conflict that at that time had not yet developed onto the horrid conditions we see today. With the deliberate destruction of Ukraine by George Soros founded Color Revolution destabilization team, then the advances of the IMF to debt conquer Ukraine with tens of billions of dollars in forced development loans, Putin's Russia emerged as the singular force capable of checking the banking cabal global advance, and is refusing to allow Ukraine and Crimea to fall into the hands of Western-backed forces. For a second to stop, because this again is written before the conflict in Ukraine that we are having now, 2015, like I said. The grand chessboard that is the Middle East is ablaze, and the world is on a razor's edge, caught between the very real possibility of escalation to World War III and the seemingly distant hope of world leaders suddenly finding sanity and de-escalating the situation. Cayce spoke of Russia's role as being the hope of the world in the coming time such as this. So these are direct words from Edgar Cayce. In Russia, there comes the hope of the world, not as that sometimes termed of the communistic or Bolshevik, no, but freedom, freedom, exclamation mark, that each man will live for his fellow man. The principle has been born. It will take years for it to be crystallized, but out of Russia comes again the hope of the world. Edgar Cayce, this was recorded in 1944, number of the file, the recording 3976-29. As events in Syria and Iraq have become more convoluted and devastating for people in the region, the Islamic State, ISIS has been on a campaign of shock and awe, raining bloody terror on Christians, Syrians, Kurds, moderate Muslims, Shia Muslims, and anyone in between. ISIS, as everyone apparently knows, is founded and supplied by the United States and Israel as a means of indirectly toppling the Assad regime in Syria. As the United States and its allies pretended like they are not responsible for ISIS and act like they are powerless to stop ISIS, Putin has calmly told the world in no uncertain terms the truth about the West's support for ISIS and the other mercenary factions which have completely destroyed Syria, already killed hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, and forcing the engineered refugee crisis on Europe, expanding the crisis now into Macedonia. Thank you for staying with me. Long article. The spiritual development and leadership of Russia. Even before World War II, Cayce appears to have foreseen the need for Russia to evolve spiritually in some manner so that it would be able to rise in opposition to the decaying moral values of the capitalist West and play its part as the great hope of the world. So he was predicting this transition from the Soviet Union into the current state of the Russian Federation. Cayce was asked what should be the attitude of so-called capitalist nations towards Russia, and his response was this: on Russia's religious development will come the greater hope of the world. Then that one or group that is the closer in its relationship my face the better in the gradual changes and final settlement of conditions as to rule of the world. 6 months later, additional information was presented which helped to clarify this earlier prediction. Again from Edgar Cayce, out of Russia, you see, there might come that which might be the basis of a more worldwide religious thought trend. This was recording 3976-12. When Cayce was asked about the Russian situation in June 1938, he answered, quoting, "A new understanding has and will come to a troubled people. Here, because of the yoke of oppression, because of the self-indulgences, has arisen another extreme. Only when there is freedom of speech, the right to worship according to the dictates of the conscience, until these come about, still turmoil will be within." This recording 3976-19. Essentially, Cayce appears to be referring to Russia after the trials under Soviet rule and the collapse of the Soviet Union, as well as the need for the world to return to humanistic values in order to free itself from the oppression of the Zionist cartels, which have been organizing against the human race for centuries. Cayce is saying that some sort of much-needed spiritual leadership will come from Russia. In this time, some kind of attitude that will make it possible for a transition of this caliber to occur without having to experience the guaranteed destruction of any World War III. Putin is at best no saint, and there is no underestimating the potential for deception by any nationalistic organization, but in a survey of the major players on the field at the moment, when the human race is teetering on a razor-sharp knife's edge, Putin appears to be bringing something to the table that other world leaders aren't willing. Common sense. And what would spiritual leadership look like in the world gone mad anyhow? At first, it would appear as common sense, of course. Aristotle even goes as far as to say that common sense is where consciousness originates. So if a society is lacking in common sense, and there is little to no conscience, morality, empathy, consciousness, creativity, taste, discernment, or love, how does one propose to govern such a population? Putin's actions in Syria makes the most common sense among the available options. Already, he has likely prevented the invasion of Syria by Turkey, checking President Erdogan at the border, and he has surely disrupted the operations of ISIS. Both are wins for the cause of common sense in the area of treachery. Did Edgar Cayce somehow knew that Russia would take the common sense gap between spiritual leadership and the guaranteed destruction of World War III, which is being engineered by the West? Speaking on the current state of US and Russia relations at the recent summit, again this is older so it's not recent, Putin said regarding United States, "You must rise above the endless desire to dominate. You must stop acting out of imperialistic ambitions. Do not poison the minds of millions of people like there can be no other way but imperialistic politics," Putin said. Isn't it, I mean, it's not surprising how they reverse it, because that's actually what they accuse him of, right? You know, that's how it goes. Few more pages, there are a few more statements from Cayce. Putin is directing our attention to the 800-pound gorilla in the room that no one else seems willing to talk about. America and the West no longer have any moral superiority in the world. Cayce also made comments about America's future moral decay. In the final World Affairs recordings given on June 22nd, 1944, see, he passed away before the end of World War II. That recording was less than 6 months before Edgar Cayce's death. He addresses the spirit and the sins of America. Quoting now Cayce, "What is the spirit of America? Most individuals proudly boast freedom. Freedom of what? When ye bind men's hearts and minds through various ways and manners, does it give them freedom of speech? Freedom of worship? Freedom from what? In the application of these principles, America might boast, but rather is that principle being forgotten. And that is the sin of America." Recording from 3976-29. Conclusion. Did Edgar Cayce foresee Putin's interfering role in the Western cabal's plan to overtake the world through financial domination? Last page, guys, I think. Moment. Domination, political destabilization, and all-out world war order out of chaos. Whether or not you believe in the power of the human mind to connect with source and withdraw information about the future, things are lining up in such a way that Cayce's prophecies regarding Russia are proving quite prescient now, giving us a clue that at least we shouldn't hold on too tightly to any preconceived notions about what will happen in coming years. And in a vacuum of any common sense or humanistic leadership from the present powers that be, why not look into a psychic for direction. In the end, through all, we have from Casey, what we have from Casey is really just the inspiration to action we get from looking into his past for clues and hope about our future. If you're concerned about the direction things are taking, let Casey's words rouse you to action. This article was published in 2015. So why I brought you this, guys, is because I believe, like I started with this quoting Joe Dispenza, there is a quantum field, there is an invisible field of informations that we can tap into. I believe most of us, if not all of us, can. However, it requires practice and it requires, some people go through meditation, some people go through sleep stage. But I believe in many of those prophecies because here is my personal take on this. I am very energy sensitive person, and again, I can only speak for myself. I know many of you will be probably not agreeing with those statements. However, I also know many of you are open to it. I feel the energy very, very strongly. As you know, I have been to Russia and I'm planning to move to Russia. I kept coming back to Russia for many reasons. One of those reasons is the energy that I feel there. And again, as we know, Moscow, where I spent most of my time in Russia mainly, is just a small part of Russia. However, I have visited some other places in Russia as well. And wherever I went to, the energy felt higher, on the higher frequency. The vibration was more clear to me, was more energizing to me, was just more pure, if I can describe it this way. I feel as if those of us who want to contribute to saving humanity, in a way, we might be called to Russia. Because I believe that is the country that will save humanity. It's not an easy fight. You're fighting with literally with darkness. And even though we might question if light, God, will ever win this battle, I 100% believe that not only will, but to some extent, it has been already won. We are just seeing how the darkness, the deep state, is representation of the darkness, how they are panicking right now because they know they already lost. I hope you are open to videos like this because I truly, truly believe we have to look at what's taking place in the world from different perspectives. And spirituality is one of those perspectives. There is understanding that comes not from intellectual approach, but more from your sensory approach. It's an instinct. It's an intuition. Even in business, the most successful business people, when you ask them, how do you make the most important decisions? They will often answer this and tell you, I listen to my instinct. They listen to their intuition. With this being said, everyone, I want to thank you for watching this video if you still are with me. It means a lot to me if you are open to those kind of topics. And that you are still subscribed to my channel. Thank you for leaving the comments down below. If this video brings you any value, hit dislike. If you would like me to bring different prophecies next Sunday from a different person, let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you choose to support my work, you can do it by becoming a member of this channel, donating on PayPal, going to my fundraiser for my little house in Russia. You have Patreon as well. I do have Patreon, and you follow me on Instagram, where you can see not only Russia but many other beautiful places I have been blessed to travel to. Join my mailing list just in case. And with this being said, have a wonderful Sunday. Lots of love. And remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. See you tomorrow in another video. Bye everyone.